Hi everybody, we're baking today. So the first recipe that I'm going to share with you for brunch at home is scones. Now, to me, scones are an easier version than a biscuit. I think people get hung up on making biscuits because they think that it's maybe a little bit too difficult or something like that, which they are kind of finicky. There's a few steps, but these scones are super easy, and if you just take a few little safeguards, give yourself a little insurance, you are good to go. So now these scones, these are like an English style scone, so they're a little bit different. You don't use the cold butter that a scone normally uses and cut it in. So I just did this in the food processor. Super easy. So you dump all of your dry ingredients in the food processor. So you have your flour, sugar, salt, baking powder. Done. Pulse it up a couple minutes. I mean, not even a couple minutes, a couple seconds. And then you're gonna put in 6 tablespoons of butter. It can be room temperature, doesn't have to be cold. And you pulse it like 8 to 10 times just until it's all incorporated. And it's just like a sandy texture. That's it, okay? That's step 1, that's all it is. Now, you can certainly buy scones if you're gonna have brunch at home, which is a little bit easier, but making like a pastry from scratch, people are going to be so impressed, and the taste is just crazy. Like, you're gonna want to make them all the time, especially with this recipe because it is very easy. I'm going to show you. Dry ingredients here. Wet ingredients: 2/3 cup of milk, 1 egg. Done. So whisk it together. I did reserve maybe like 2 tablespoons because we're going to brush the top of our scones once we're done, but basically just pour it in, mix it together. Okay. Are you following this super complicated recipe now? Now, when you're baking, you don't want to overmix anything, so mix gently. I'm gonna hold it together. You don't want them to be tough. You want like crispy, flaky, buttery scones. So I'm just gonna mix for a couple more seconds just until this is all incorporated, and then I'm going to pour it out onto my, you can do this right on the counter. This is one of the safeguards that I was talking about, like an insurance policy. I lay down a layer of parchment paper. So when I'm cutting, if you're like making biscuits or anything, if you cut biscuits, sometimes it just depends on the humidity in your house. I live in Florida, so it's always really warm. Things can stick sometimes, and you don't want to keep overflouring and overflowing because then things aren't flaky and delicious. They're dry because you put too much flour. So I do this because when I cut them, at least if they're on this, they're not going to stick. I can just peel this off and pull them off of this instead of sticking to the, to the counter, and then you have to scrape them up, and then it just becomes kind of a mission. So we want to make things that are impressive, but that are not very stressful and hard to bake. So that's why we're doing this easier version of the scones. So this is, I mean, we're all mixed together here. So I'm going to dump it out. Actually, I'm gonna put a little bit of flour down. We're gonna sprinkle a little bit of flour around here. Give myself a little layer. So I'm just going to make sure I got all this, and we're gonna knead it just a few times so it's in a nice, beautiful ball, all combined. Put that out of the way. There. Okay. I've taken my rings off for this, just in case. All right. It's a little bit sticky, but that's what you want. Okay, so this is all you want to do, just like a light dusting. You don't want to do too much because then you could be in a bad situation. So we're gonna mix this, knead it together, and then once we have this all in one ball, I'm gonna roll it out until about 1 inch thick. And then I'll show you guys how we cut these babies. Okay, so I just kneaded this out for about 30 seconds. I add a little bit more flour. And how much flour you add, you just want to sprinkle on a little bit at a time because it's just gonna depend, like I said, on like where you live. If you live in a very dry climate, you might not need as much. If you live in Florida, you might need a little bit more. So you just want to go light dusting, get your roller. This is also why I put this down, because then when I'm done, I can just throw this fresher paper away and I don't have flour all over the kitchen. So Look at, can you see the you probably can't see the texture. It is like so fluffy. Ooh, baby. Okay, I'm just gonna do a couple rolls because you want it about an inch thick. And then you need a round cutter. Or you could do fun shapes if you wanted to, I guess. So I can't find my round cutter, so I'm just using the top of a mason jar. So we're gonna cut these, and basically you just do as many as you can, and then with the leftover dough, you're gonna wanna gather it up again in a ball and then roll it out again and maybe get one more, two more, depending on how big your cutter is here. All right. Okay, I got 7 with my first batch. All right, now I'm gonna grab here my baking sheet. I'm gonna show you another trick so they don't stick. You want either like one of those silicone mats, or this is like a baking mat right here. That's the next trick. So I'm gonna take these, see, and if you have it on here, look, they just come right off. No struggle. And if it got stuck, you could just, like I said, go under here and peel it off that way. It makes it so much easier than trying to scrape it off the counter if it sticks. So I'm gonna get all my extra dough. I'm gonna cut a couple more, and we are going to brush the tops of these with this egg wash that we have here. We're already almost done. Okay. Here are my little babies. Now I'm just gonna brush the tops here with a little bit of egg wash. This will help them be nice and shiny and beautiful. Whenever I see people making biscuits, I always think, wow, that is a mission. I'm not gonna do that. But this recipe especially, it's actually not as hard as it looks, especially you start in the food processor, blend it up. All you do is put a little flour, roll it out, and cut it. And I mean, that's basically it. It's not complicated at all. There's just a few steps, but nothing is like hard or complicated about it. Especially if you use like surfaces like this, like the parchment paper to peel right off. You don't have to worry about sticking or anything. It takes the stress out of the whole situation. There you go. Okay, 425, like 14-ish minutes. Everyone's oven is also different, so just watch them. Don't open the oven, let them puff up. You can check with the light, just peek in there, but I'll be back to show you guys how these beauties turn out. Check out these babies. Look how fluffy this one got. Now, they don't all look the same, which is perfect. That's what you want, because that signals that it's homemade. When stuff is all consistent, you know that it came from the store, which is totally fine. But the fact that these are all different says, I made these from scratch. So this one is kind of split open and it's like begging me to eat it. These are still hot. They just came out of the oven. But I couldn't wait because they smell so good. Oh, and scones are perfect. Oh, you guys see the steam? I think scones are perfect for like breakfast or brunch because just like a biscuit, they're neutral. So you can put, you know, if you're having a brunch with a couple of people, you can put a few different toppings, you know, for your scones. You can eat them plain. You can put just regular butter. You could do an herbed butter with like some garlic and some salt and some fresh herbs like parsley or dill or something. You could do a cinnamon sugar butter. You could do cream cheese. You could do jam. All of the above. Put out a, you know, couple different options and let people go sweet or savory, whatever they want. Man. They're so good. Is anyone else watching Selena and Chef on HBO Max? Because this is partially what inspired this, because I saw her make biscuits the other day. She made cheddar bacon scallion biscuits. Hers were actual biscuits, and she did like 3 layers with all the stuff in the middle. It looked crazy, but I was like, I'm gonna do an easier version of that, but this is where the inspiration came from for this. But perfect start to the brunch recipes. Love it. I'm gonna slather this in butter and finish this one, and maybe one more. And I'll be back next week with another brunch recipe for you guys.